Just over a month ago, seemingly out of nowhere, a new trailer came out for Paper Mario: The Origami King. Watching the trailer, I was beyond excited, especially since it was only a 2-month wait. Being a huge fan of the Paper Mario series, I consider some of the games to be the very best in the whole Mario franchise. In some cases, the very best on their respective consoles. This series is more than just your standard RPG. From the very beginning, it had a large fan base, most likely because of Nintendo's first RPG, with Mario as a star. Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo is a universally loved game. However, for almost a decade, the Paper Mario fanbase has become divided, and reactions to Origami King were very polarizing. On the surface, responses seemed mostly positive. However, if you go into replays and various places where the game is talked about, the discussion is more negative. This is very unusual from the typical reaction to most Nintendo game trailers. 3 years ago, Metroid Prime 4 was revealed, and they literally just showed the logo, yet the fanbase lost their minds just knowing that it was getting made. So you may be wondering, what makes the Paper Mario fanbase so divisive, especially with just a simple trailer? If you take a look at the trailer, it's clear that we don't have a whole lot to go off of. Visually, it looked great. We had some basic gameplay, but that was about it. I knew this was a game that I would pick up, but others had reactions the total opposite to mine. Some were a little skeptical, saying that it looked like some previous games in the franchise, and that made them hesitant. But others were more harsh, saying that it was going to be a disaster. On both sides, we had people going after each other. One side saying it's wrong to support a developer that aren't listening to the fans, and the other side saying that they are listening, and you can't know everything based off a 2-minute trailer. So those of you who don't follow this series as closely as I have, may be wondering what happened. Back in the day, Paper Mario fans were united. But over the course of 2 decades of a franchise, some things are going to change. And a lot of fans don't like them, some won't even give the newer games a chance. So today, I'm going to go over a simple history of the mechanics and gameplay of each of the games, what brought fans in, and what changed that pushed some out. In the year 2000, the N64 was at the end of its lifespan, but Nintendo had a brand new spin-off game for the Mario franchise as one of the last games to come out for the console. Sort of a spiritual successor to Super Mario RPG. In fact, it was originally called Super Mario RPG 2, but before it was released, they changed the name to Paper Mario. As you would guess, the game has a very papery atmosphere that can be best described as a pop-up book. Unlike most RPGs, especially at the time, the game wasn't super focused on the story, at least not in the same fashion. The franchise's writing has elements of humor and doesn't always take itself too seriously. The first thing that sets Paper Mario apart from other Mario games is that just because you see a Goomba or a Koopa, that doesn't mean that they are your enemy. If you see them in a town, chances are they're friendly. And if they're chasing you down, odds are they are your enemy. Some of these friendly ones will join you on your quest to once again save Princess Peach. Some of these allies include Goombario, Cooper, Lycolester, and Bo. They are known as partners and help you in 2 main ways. One of them is by helping you navigate the world. For example, you can use Bombette to blow up a wall with a crack on it, or Sushi can help you swim through water. The other way they help you is in battle. Each partner has different attacks as well as secondary abilities. Let's take Goombario for example. He can jump on enemies, but also uses tattle ability to tell you their attack, defense, health, and even a possible weakness. Mario also has a cool arsenal of his own. Of course, he can jump on enemies, but he also has a hammer for when jumping won't get the job done. The battle system is what put this series on the map. It's engaging and actually fun. For example, when you jump on enemy, you can time an A press. If you do this correctly, you can get a second jump in. You can also press A just before an enemy attack to guard yourself to reduce the amount of damage you would take. In a pinch, an extra jump or guarding can make all the difference. You also have badges, which you can equip if you have enough badge points for the collection of badges that you want to use. These can give you extra moves like the power bounce, which will allow you to keep jumping on an enemy as long as you keep time and A press correctly. It can also give you cosmetic options that don't cost badge points like the spin dash, which makes wandering the world oddly more satisfying, and unfortunately this never made a return in any other games, which feels criminal. If you use a move that was given to you by a badge, it will cost flower points. Of course these moves are stronger, but if you don't have the flower points, you can't use them, so you really have to think about how to ration them out and if you really need them at that moment. You also have items you can use, ranging from the lightning bolt, which will zap enemies in battle, as well as the mushroom to restore health, and also some honey to restore flower points. The last ability in battles that you can use are star powers. Over the course of the game, you can get more when you complete a chapter, usually costing more star points. These abilities can be stat buffs, restoring health or FP, or even damaging the enemies. Leveling up gives you 3 options. Increase your health, your flower points, or your badge points. Any can be good options depending on how you like to play. There's also allowed for some interesting challenges, like a playthrough where you only increase your badge points, which on its own can have a ton of different strategies. The last feature in this game I want to talk about without giving too much away is Princess Peach. Of course she's kidnapped by Bowser, but she actually plays an interesting role. You play as her in between story chapters, and by doing this you reveal more story, help give Mario important items through what I can only define as magic, or just doing things around the castle, including her specialty, baking a cake. Each section is unique and doesn't really feel like it's interrupting the main game. And it's an interesting way to show off what Peach is doing while she's in captivity. There are many more small features that I could go on hours about, like star pieces or individual NPCs or even some minigames, but that would take way too long and give way too much away, so on to the next game. Four years later, we got Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. It took pretty much everything from the first game and improved on almost everything, other than not bringing back the spin dash. Many consider it to be the best in the series, myself included. The immediate first thing that's different you can see is the cast. You have all new partners that you meet. I'm not going to go into all of them, since some of them I consider to be actual spoilers. But you also have an entirely new villain organization, the X-Nauts. You can see that in just the first era, you have a lot of new characters. You know, these Mayas, some bears, and even the Beyond the Mafia. Unfortunately, a lot of these original characters never saw a return in any future games. One of the biggest things that built upon is the battle system, which it does this on many levels, and is where this game gets a lot of its praise. The first thing they added is Super Guarding. The timing for this is more precise than regular guarding. But if you push B just before an enemy attacks you, you'll take no damage. But if you miss the timing, you take full damage. High risk, high reward. This addition can be a bit broke and make you virtually unkillable, but with the timing being about a tenth of a second, it may be better used as a last resort. Another element in the battling system is the audience. That's right, every battle you have is in front of a live studio audience. And they actually play a role in the battle. For one, the audience can throw things at Mario and crew. It could be coins, health, or even an item. Or if they aren't a fan of you, they can throw a rock or a hammer. The harmful ones only do a little bit of damage, but they can kill you if they come up near death. When an audience member is going to throw something, you are given a prompt to hit the X button, which will give Mario or the party member in battle with you to run into the audience and kick the audience member out. This can happen even if they're giving you a good item. So if you see the prompt come up, you might frantically look in the audience to see what they are throwing. You only have a few seconds to react, so this adds a whole new element that will occasionally come up. The audience will also come and go in battle depending on how you are doing. If you're timing your guards well and getting extra attacks in, more will come in. Or if you're losing or nothing exciting is happening, they will leave, and this does play a vital role in the battle. Returning from the first game are star moves. And rather than the star power filling up at a set rate, you can fill it up faster or slower depending on the excitement of the audience. The more people in the audience, the faster the meter can fill up, and there are several ways you can fill it up. One of course is timing your hitting and guarding. You can also appeal to the audience instead of attacking, which guarantees the star meter will fill up a little bit. And you have what might be the most fun addition to battling, and that is stylish attacks. After or during an attack, you can press A press at a good moment, and then Mario or the party member will do a flip, a wave, a wink, something at the audience that will give you just a little bit more star power. And yet another thing that can occur during battle is bingo. If you time your hits well, you get something on a slot wheel. If you get a pair, then you get a chance to spin the wheel for the third. And if you get 3 of a kind, you can get a good bonus. All of these will fill up your audience, but they can also max out your health, your flower points, or your star power. And if you get 3 shine sprites, you get all 3 at once. However, if you get 3 poisonous mushrooms, something bad will happen, including losing a good chunk of your audience. But that's just the battle system. Just like the first game, it has its fair share of humor, but this time around they really stepped up their story elements as well as their character development. You can really see this when you play as Peach in between the main game chapters, just like the first game. I don't want to spoil too much once again, because these are very enjoyable, and by the end of the game, I feel like she has her own fully developed story. Like I said before, this time Peach is captured by the X-Nauts, which I just want to say have one of the coolest themes. Just listen. But if she's with the X-Nauts, where's Bowser? He is in the game, and you actually get to play as him this time. His parts are also unique, and are especially focused on humor. Of course, they are different each time. One of my favorites is playing through a 2D platformer section similar to the Super Mario Bros. Games. Something I didn't touch upon while talking about the first game is the chapters and worlds themselves. Each chapter is an adventure on its own, and I saved it for now because I'm not as familiar with the first game, and I also love each and every chapter of the Thousand Year Door. They range from exploring a castle to a train mystery to my favorite one, which is a wrestling organization where you fight yourself up the ranks. Each chapter is a few hours long and filled out, feels like a complete story on their own. Most people who play this love different chapters for different reasons, and I think that's an amazing feat. To have a game where no section feels bad, there isn't a single part of the game that I dread when I go back to play it. But there are definitely a few that I like more than the others. The last thing that I really liked about this game is something that you can completely miss out like I did on my first playthrough, and that is Luigi. You can't play as him, but as you go on your adventure, you can find Luigi hanging around the main area of Rogueport. Depending on where you are on your adventure, Luigi will have a different creature standing next to him, similar to Mario and his partners, and it turns out Luigi was going on his own adventure at the same time as Mario. You can talk to him, and he will tell you about what he's been doing in good detail. There's even a book of his adventures that you can buy in-game. A fairly common request that I see is for this to be made into its own game, as it would be interesting to see what Luigi was actually doing when Mario was on his adventure. There are many more things I don't want to give away that you can discover on your own playthrough. So after 2 hit games and the start of a new console generation, fans are excited to see what would be next for the series, and that came in the form of Super Paper Mario. And with a new game came a new formula. When the game was announced, I was still young, so I don't know the immediate reaction to these changes. Aside from a few friends at school, I remember talking about it. I heard them talk about a 3D mechanic, and what they said sounded cool. The first time I actually saw the game was when I was looking at the game section, and I saw Super Paper Mario. And the only thing I thought at the time was, why such a boring name? But now it makes more sense after I connected a few dots. In Mario games, Nintendo usually throws Super in the title for their 2D side-scroller games, with only a few exceptions. And initially it would seem odd to have an RPG with side-scroller mechanics, and that's because the game is more of a platformer, or an action RPG. In this game, there's no more turn-based battle system other than jumping on enemies. And that's really it. If you shake the controller right after jumping on an enemy, you do a stylish move type flip, and you see a bit of the audience as they cheer you on, and you get a little bit more experience. Through leveling up, you can increase your health and your damage. There are no longer special flower power moves, star moves, or badge points. You also don't have partners, at least not in the same way. No longer do you have classic Mario enemies fighting by your side. We have these new creatures called pixels to help you in similar ways while exploring the world, like tattling, blowing up things in your way, and some new ones like throwing at enemies, potentially as a weapon against other enemies. Now, while I do prefer the previous formula, it doesn't ruin the game and actually works really well. However, these changes are what people who aren't a fan of the game use to criticize it the most. But there are plenty of other changes that I found to be huge improvements, especially in terms of story and mechanics. Earlier I mentioned a 3D mechanic, and it's actually a really fascinating tool. It allows Mario to go into the third dimension to help traverse the world or avoid enemies, find hidden items, or even the key to defeating the boss. Added a whole new element and definitely was a good addition, especially for world exploration. Just like the two previous games, you have chapters, but rather than it just being chapter 1, 2, 3, and so on, it takes on the classic Mario level scheme and has chapters 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, and so on. This really doesn't affect gameplay too much, but it does give it a different feel. Throughout the game, you do have people who join you, other than the pixels. Once again, you can play as Peach and Bowser, but this time you also have Luigi. Each character has different abilities. Peach can float across gaps, Bowser can breathe fire, and Luigi can jump higher. They all serve similar purposes to partners in previous games, and do have that personality that I felt the pixels were missing. And it was nice to see Luigi team up with his older brother, as well as Bowser helping Mario for the first time since Super Mario RPG, not including the sports games. But the thing that sets Super Paper Mario apart from the other games is its stories. Now, the first two games did have good story elements. Super takes on a whole nother level. It still has its humor, but there's so much more character development, including the villains. Each boss felt more unique than ever before. The story itself had some pretty large twists that caught me off guard. The final boss and another one that stars Mr. L are exceptionally brilliant. I still remember the first time I saw those happen. It's hard to go into what was so good about the story without giving too much away. I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't gotten a chance to play it themselves. But I will say it is a very, very good story. Despite all the changes, it turned out to be a very enjoyable game. Different, but a blast to play through for most. Some people don't like it for being a traditional RPG, which is fair, but I think the story and some other elements were good calls by Nintendo and ultimately worked out. If you were someone who passed up on this game when it first came out, I would say give it a shot. You might be pleasantly surprised by how much you like it in the end. And now we have the first handheld of the Paper Mario series, Paper Mario Sticker Star, and it's widely regarded as the worst in the series, myself included. I was incredibly excited for this game. I saved the $40 and everything. Once again, I don't remember what opinions were at the time before the game's release, but I don't remember hearing anything bad about it. I remember that I thought the game looked awesome. The only other person whose opinion I know of at the time was my cousin. Initially, he seemed just excited as I was about the game. I knew a bit more about it before it came out. Before he even got to Chapter 2, he said he didn't like it very much. There were some very notable differences. Once again, the formula was different, similar to the original, but different enough to talk about. Rather than having attacks as well as items, you have all ways of attacking all in the same category, almost like only having items, but in the form of stickers. At first I didn't mind this too much, but as I was getting through the first chapter, I began to miss doing stylish commands to impress the excited audience. The battles weren't as immersive as before, and felt boring if I'm being honest. You didn't yet have partners or pickles or anything, it was just Mario and your stickered companion guy that I don't remember the name of. You don't even get anything from battles really. You'd get some coins, and occasional upgrades to your health, and over time you get stronger stickers, but it felt like there wasn't a real reason to battle. It turned into a game of avoiding every enemy in sight. In the first two games, I would seek out battles because they were legitimately fun, and in Super, I could fight enemies as I passed by them. But all this was just gone, and it made the game feel empty. I didn't even make it past chapter 2 before I had enough. I even looked up to see if the game got any better later on, and it didn't. I have heard so few people say that they even like this game, let alone prefer it to the other three. One of the largest criticisms of the game are its characters. In Sticker Star, there are a bunch of toads. I don't remember the variety of enemies, but I don't imagine that being a very good thing. I feel like Paper Mario lost a lot of its personality because of this, and it made me miss partners or interesting background characters even more. I know I don't have a lot to say about this game, but that's because I never finished it. With the battles not being fun, no interesting characters, it made it hard to continue through the game, and trust me, I tried. There are two things that I believe this game did very well. The first is the music, which is unsurprising. The series as a whole has great music. I have no complaints about Sticker Star's soundtrack, but from what I heard, even the battle theme sounds good. The other thing the game did good was its art style. I absolutely love this art style. Rather than it being a pop-up book style, it looks more like an arts and crafts project, where everything is made up of paper, cardboard, things look like they're actually hand-placed. And while this is the greatest strength of Sticker Star, it's also the fifth game's biggest weakness. Paper Mario Color Splash visually looks fantastic. It looks like they took Sticker Star and made it in HD, and added even more details. But unfortunately, because the game looked just like Sticker Star, many fans were reluctant to buy it, dubbing it Sticker Star 2. And I know it wasn't just purely based off the visuals, but I do believe that those led to some quick judgments, and this also seems to be the case with Origami King. I was interested in Color Splash after seeing some gameplay, particularly with the exploration, but I actually didn't plan on buying it at all. The only reason why I did was because there's literally nothing else to get on the Wii U at the time. Initially when I played the game, I definitely didn't hate it. It was a clear improvement over Sticker Star, but it was nothing compared to the first three games. And after a few hours, I stopped playing it. Then a month or two later, for some reason, I tried the game again, but this time I absolutely loved it. I played it every day until I eventually beat it 100%. And afterwards, I still wanted more. First off, I'm going to mention that once again there are no partners. The only person that accompanies you is the paint can Huey. Personally, I think he's a great companion. He's very sarcastic and funny. However, you don't really get to see any other sides of him, if they do exist. Huey grants Mario a paint hammer, which, just like it sounds, lets Mario splash paint on enemies or objects. Like I said before, the visuals look great. Not only that, but they also play a part in the gameplay itself. Throughout each level there were spots without color, and you had to hit them with your paint hammer in order to fill them in. I think this was a good addition. It gave me a good reason to explore around the level the second time in case I missed any spots. Exploring was a true joy because of how great the game looked. It was a great game to play after a long day. Another thing about this game that I love was the writing. There were so many good moments throughout the game that were really clever. For example, Shy Guys are eating some really spicy food, and so spicy that one of them is burnt into ash. And unfortunately that's all that I can really compliment the game on. Nothing was worse than Sticker Star, and the improvements that I made the game very enjoyable, but there were still aspects that weren't completely fixed. But at least now you had a reason to play through the bad. Now let's talk about something else you can find while exploring the world. A feature in Sticker Star that I didn't mention was that there were some 3D objects, like a fire extinguisher, a fan. Sometimes these were used to progress through the world, or you can use them in battle to do a ton of damage, or they would be required for a boss fight. Using them for progress was fine, but this made me not want to use them in battle, because I didn't want to have to go backtrack to get something again, or go to the main area to buy them, then go all the way back to where I would use them. And it wasn't always clear whether you would use them for progress or not. And this also carries over to boss fights. Most of the boss fights in this game are the Koopalings, and every fight requires you to use some sort of 3D card, which I found to be a shame. Using the correct card would do something to them. Sometimes the reasoning behind them made sense. For example, when fighting Iggy, there's a chain chomp, so I used the bun card to make the chain chomp chase it so then you can actually hit Iggy. But some other ones, like Lummy's battle, were kinda frustrating. You have to wait until he gets his Wonder Ball out, then you use the Disco Ball to distract him, and then use the Ice Pick to pop the Wonder Ball. And I can see the logic in the Ice Pick, but why would I think to use the Disco Ball first? And if you use either of these too early, you simply waste the items, then you have to leave the battle, go pick up both of those again, and then go back to the fight. And it was like this for most of the battle. You may know what item to use, but you're not going to know exactly when to use them. Sometimes this led to the confusion about why something didn't work, even though it made sense to me. I think this is poor design, and it could be handled much better. For example, if you figure out what you should do, you should be able to try it out earlier in the battle. Or have the items not be wasted if they won't do anything. Or better yet, bring back something like flower points and have the 3D cards be permanent. Then you use some of your FP to use them, so then you no longer need to backtrack and keep fighting the 3D objects. And then you don't have to be afraid to use them in more situations. And also, because in every boss fight you had to wait until a certain queue to use a 3D card, it made the battles very formulaic. Do some damage, wait for something to happen, and then use a 3D card. And then you fight them some more. I will say there was at least one boss fight that I really liked. And it's one where you literally fight a piece of steak, and you have to tenderize it to win. But as a whole, I feel like they lost the appeal of actually fighting bosses from the first 3 games, the first 2 in particular. In Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, shortly after you enter Chapter 1, a shadow flies over your head, and you see a dragon go into a castle. And right before this moment, you found out that the Crystal Star is in that castle. So as you begin walking around towards the town of Petalburg, you talk to some NPCs and they will tell you about the dragon. Imagine that some other Koopas have gone to the castle to fight the dragon, including your soon-to-be party member's father. And when you eventually fight the dragon, you have all this tension built up through the stories you've heard and Koops wanting to avenge his father. I only sort of felt this to a very small extent, to the sake of all the battles. After fighting the first Koopaling, which I would say was sort of out of nowhere and it was interesting, but it was pretty obvious what the next 6 bosses were going to be. And while that I like the game is funny, I do wish that there were a bit more seriousness here and there. Another thing that I think is very unfortunate with Color Splash is that once again the cast of characters is mostly Toads, Goombas, and Shy Guys. And I think that this has a very simple fix. Even if they already exist, it would be nice to have some variety. Overall, I'd say Color Splash is a good game despite having a lot of flaws. It took the new formula and improved upon it, and took a lot of steps in the right direction. And I think it's unfair to simply call it Sticker Star 2. And with that, that's all the games released this far. The 6th game, Paper Mario: The Origami King, comes out tomorrow from when this video is uploaded. Originally this section was going to be some things that I was hoping to be in the game, but as we got closer to the release day, more details were revealed, and now we know almost every aspect. So I'm going to be going over some of the biggest topics that people are talking about, and my thoughts on them. First off is the art style. No surprise, I think it looks amazing. However, there are a good amount of people that say they don't like it, and the game has gone too far with the paper aesthetic. I think that this is an odd complaint because this seems to be the natural progression for the series. But to each their own. Next up is partners. We know for a fact that they are back and will help you in battle. However, they only stick around for one chapter, and they will not help Mario out in the field. I think that this is unfortunate because that limits possible puzzle solving that would have made exploring more enjoyable. But having them back at all is better than not. I think that having them from one chapter can work from a storytelling point, and each chapter can have a full chapter for themselves. So I'd say it's definitely a step in the right direction at the very least. We also know that Luigi does play a role in this game. Similar to TTYD, he has his own adventure. I'm not sure if you get to play as him during these segments, but it's always great to have him on your side. Next up is exploration, and it's very similar to Color Splash. You can find holes and fill them up with confetti, and get coins and possibly items. I like this in Color Splash, so I'll probably like it here too. This time you can also find toads out in the field. Doing this will have them be in the bleachers when you fight, and during fights you can give them coins and they will help you out. I like this as it gives another reason to explore and adds more things to buy. Now let's talk about battling. The ring format seems to be very hit or miss. I've heard people say that the puzzle part before fighting is the most enjoyable part, as the battles themselves seem to be very easy. I do find the difficulty to be disappointing, because it seems for a good while you aren't even going to be getting hit if you can set up the enemies correctly. I think this will be fine if you can't take many hits before getting the game over, and it will only encourage you to get more one-turn victories. But if you have a ton of health and can take many hits, like you probably will at the end of the game, I see this being a huge disappointment. And now it's time for the big one. There is absolutely no experience points for battling. You just get confetti and coins. Similar to Color Splash, this will unfortunately make battles feel more or less useless. At first I thought coins alone could work if you could upgrade your stats or buy armor, similar to the Dark Souls games, but that doesn't seem to be the case. The only stat that you can increase is your health, and that can happen through exploration or defeating bosses. And badges, now called accessories, can be found through exploration, and you can only have a certain amount equipped at a time. You can also occasionally get items or weapons outside of battle, which makes coins even less valuable. So even if items are expensive, there's no real reason to buy them, because you're just going to use them up to get more money to buy even more. I think there needed to be something that you can only gain through battling, even if it was through coins in the end, because then you would have incentive to battle. So once again, it seems I missed the mark on this point. Boss battles look fun enough, though I wish the bosses themselves had deeper design. For example, with the colored pencils or the tape, it would seem to be better if they had someone controlling them. I do hope the ones that we don't know about so far have some tension building up to them, similar to Hooktail and the Thousand Year Door. There are also some mini bosses out in the field, and those look fun. I'm not sure about the cast of characters because I haven't been watching a ton of gameplay or reviews. You have to go into the game as fresh as I can. But I did see a part with some sinking trees and that looks amazing. So if there's more of that, I am fully on board. The music and humor also seem to be good, which doesn't even remotely surprise me. And that's all that I can think of to mention. As a whole, I think it's fair to call this Color Splash 2.0. I think it takes a lot of steps in the right direction once again. If there was incentive to battle, then I would believe this to be a great game all around. I think I'll enjoy this as much as Color Splash, if not more. If you didn't like Color Splash, you probably won't like this one too much. And if you haven't played the last 2 games, then there's probably enough to take a look at for you to make your own decisions for whether you should pick it up or not. Thank you for watching Let's Talk About Paper Mario. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, as well as comment down below if there's anything else you were hoping to see in Paper Mario Origami King. See you later.